1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so believe it or not, there was a day when a family could live off one income. I know I know it's almost unimaginable nowadays, but a family could live off one income. You could buy a house, you could have a car, you could go on vacation, you can enjoy your life on one job, usually a factory manufacturing job back in the day. One job. The husband could go to work, the mother can take care of the kids. Everyone has money. They have money in their savings. Things were cheap. Things were relatively cheap. And now you can barely live off two incomes. That's how pathetically expensive everything is. If you believe in economic justice and fighting for the working class, please consider subscribing. That's what this channel is about. I would really appreciate it. So let's take a look at this. Let's see what the state of the U.S. economy is in 2025, because I can tell you it's disastrous. The cost of living in America is already unsustainable. Imagine making $75K. That is a lot of money, folks. $75K. No debt except a car. You're doing everything right and still barely scraping by with $300 left a month in your bank account. This is because private equity is buying up all the homes. Rent is skyrocketing because of private equity. You have private equity buying up power grids, so power bills are too high. You have grocery prices that are absolutely insane. You have inflation that is high. Wages haven't kept up with inflation since 1970. So if you're making $75K a year, if you add up all your expenses, you only have $300 left at the end of the month. You can't even save, and you're making a ton of money. $75K is a lot of money, folks, and you can't live off it anymore. People out here acting like you're lazy if you're struggling. No, these are systemic issues. This is not a personal failure. I've talked about this on my videos. This is a systemic failure and a problem with the U.S. economy. It's not that you're lazy. These are factors that are affecting your pocketbook, that are affecting your money, that are outside of your control. These are external systemic issues that we have a problem with in this country because we don't do anything about it. Right? The system is broken. That's absolutely right. It's not a personal failure. Inflation is out of control, right? Wages aren't keeping up with inflation, as I mentioned. The essentials are a luxury, right? Essentials are a luxury now. Grocery prices are insane. This is an essential good. We need groceries. We need to feed ourselves, right? And they almost feel like a luxury to buy fruit now and eggs. The working poor is the new normal. We need serious change. We need serious change. Raise the standard of living. Pay people a living wage. These corporations need to pay people a living wage. Wages need to keep up with inflation. Raise the minimum wage. The government needs to do something. Tie wages to real costs. Stop blaming struggling Americans. This is what's happening. You're blaming struggling Americans instead of the rich not paying their fair share, instead of the private equity buying up all the homes, instead of the government not doing anything to address any of these issues except worry about Argentina and Israel, right? And giving arms to Ukraine and ballrooms and fancy dinners with billionaires. But when it comes to the working class, I don't hear nothing. I don't see nothing. You watch the news and they're talking about the most random shit. They're talking about Argentina, bailing out Argentina when people are absolutely struggling. Take a look at this. Take a look at this. 50 years ago, one income could buy a house, raise kids, build wealth. Today, dual incomes barely cover the basics. You're making two incomes in a household and you're barely covering the basics. What's the next step? You went from one person being able to save and buy a house to needing two people. What's the next step? No one being able to afford to buy a house. No one being able to afford the American dream. No one being able to build wealth. No one being able to save money. That is the next step. It's just logical conclusion, right? You went from one person to two. From two persons to what? There's only two people in a family. What, are the kids going to have to work now and live in the house forever? And you can't leave the house anymore? I mean, what's the next step? Either you can't afford everything or the kids are just going to have to live with you forever and you're all going to have to pool your money. I mean, this is out of control, right? This was not an accident. This is what really happened. Look at this beautiful family 50 years ago, just bought their house. They can afford to go on vacation and save their money. It's absolutely pathetic. Let's watch this video, okay? We're going to watch this video of this guy really breaking down what people are feeling, what young people are feeling, because I think he absolutely nails it. All right, let's check this out. This guy nails it. We're going to react to what he says, but I really think he kills it. A young person reached out to him and asked him, how did he do it out of college? How did he live by himself? And he goes, I never lived by myself. I could never afford it. I wanted to save money. So I've never lived by myself. I've always had a roommate. Let's check this out.
Would ask me an incredibly important question because they felt absolute despair. They said that they had finished college and they got an apartment and they feel like that they had really made it happen. They had like launched and they had started their life, and then they were having a lot of trouble paying for rent and being like, I don't know if this was the right choice. What am I doing? Sort of like, I thought this was going to be feasible, but it's not. And they said, like, how did you deal with feelings like that after you started your, post-educational work life and living like this? And I realized, and the answer I gave them is the truth, which is I've never lived alone. And I think a lot of us have never lived alone. And it's sort of a myth that you should be able to go out and get an apartment by yourself. Like, don't get me wrong. A lot of people want to get apartments by themselves. A lot of people don't want to have roommates. Maybe you've had a bad roommate situation in the past. There's a lot of reasons to want to live alone. But from an economic and like young person standpoint, living alone is financially very, very difficult. And it's not like I don't think it should be viewed as a failure that you can't do that. Throughout most of history,
it shouldn't be looked at as a failure because these are systemic issues that are keeping people from being able to live by themselves. And he's talking specifically about a young person that reached out to him, but this goes all the way up to people in their 20s and 30s that can't afford to live by themselves. And it's not their fault. It's the system's fault. The system is rigged against them. They can't afford to live alone anymore. And we're going to start seeing where we start going into a type of society like they have in India and other places around the world where we start living with our parents much, much, much longer, right? Because we can't afford to live by ourselves, right? It's getting to the point where we're all going to have to pool our resources together as a family, right? And not move out when we're 18, 19, 20, even in our 30s. Until you get married. That's where we're devolving into, where you can't leave the house until you get married and have at least another income, right? That's where we're at.
It was not a thing. It became the sort of mentality and life goal later. But a lot of cultures, they don't have that. A lot of families, they don't have that. We want it, maybe, but we don't have that ability. Wages have not kept track with housing in the way that they should have. That housing was not built for individuals in most cases. It's really hard to be a single economic unit. And it's hard to say, but maybe it's okay to forgive yourself for not doing that. I rented a room in a house. Then I rented, in a 2-bedroom place, barely spoke to my roommate, different issue. Then I moved into a house where I rented a room with 3 other strangers. Then I moved into a house with 1 friend and a couple of other strangers. And then I moved in to the apartment that my wife owned and my now wife owned and paid her rent. Then we bought a house together. At no point in this, like, I had my own independent life, but at no point did I try to live independently. Don't try.
This is where we're at. So this is where we're at. People can't afford to live by themselves, especially out of college. That is completely over. You going away to college thinking you're going to get out, getting a job, making enough money to live by yourself, that is basically gone now. They're going to have to move back in with their parents. And that's what's going on. A lot of young people are moving back in with their parents and living with them much, much, much longer because they're getting out making $15 an hour, or they can't find a job at all. As I mentioned in my last video, youth unemployment is like 16%. Long-term unemployment is at 27%. That is people that are unemployed longer than 6 months. That's where we're at. So even leaving college, they're not finding a job. And so this is where we're at. Take a look at this. In 1950, the median home price was $7,354. Let's just take a moment of silence. Well, let's not take a moment of silence. Let's just, I think we should take a moment of silence for the death of the American dream. But let's just soak that in. $7,354. You could buy a house in 1950. Adjusted for inflation, it's still traumatically cheaper, not dramatically, traumatically, because it's a traumatic situation, cheaper than the cost of a house today. Today, it's $420,000. That's the median household income. That is absurd that we're paying that kind of money for a house. Absolutely absurd. This is why our parents could buy a house on one income while we can barely afford rent with two people. Barely afford rent with two people, and they could buy a house for $7,000. Houses didn't get bigger, your dollars got smaller. I mean, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And I can't believe we've normalized and accepted that living alone is now an expensive luxury. We've accepted that. We've normalized it. That living alone is a luxury now. That's where we're at as a society. And that working adults must now have roommates. Working adults, not even kids out of college. We're probably talking about people in their 20s and 30s that haven't got married yet. This is a luxury now, being able to live by themselves. They need to get roommates. Or that most safety net programs now barely even cover a rented room. What happened to starter apartments and singles living alone? Well, that's gone. That's gone, folks. All of that is gone. Being able to buy a house for $7,000 in 1950 is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Can you imagine if we could buy houses even adjusted for inflation of $7,000 would be amazing, would be truly, truly amazing. The American dream is truly gone. We have the ability to make more affordable housing. We're the richest country in the world. We can afford to make houses cheaply, but you have private equity buying up all the houses and the government does nothing to stop it. So this is where we're at. I hope you're all doing well. I hope your families are doing well. I hope you can be able to afford the American dream. Please like and subscribe if you like this video. This channel fights for the working class. That's what this channel is about. Making people aware of these challenges, of these issues, and fighting for workers. So if that's something you believe in, like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I hope you're all doing well. See you in the next one.